exactly what are some innovative projects that Mandai Wildlife Group has been taking on to solve some of these real-world problems? We have a privilege of finding out more from two of our next speakers. First up, let's hear from Mr. Ryan Han, Assistant Vice President, Transformation Office, Mandai Wildlife Group, who will share more about Mandai's Open Innovation Lab. Ryan is a design strategist and practitioner with over 15 years of experience, and he has worked in various industries to build their innovation capabilities, including in tech, healthcare, finance, and tourism. Ryan, all yours.
Hey, hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the third segment of this Mandai Innovation Forum. And this segment is designed for partners like you. And you have heard from Belina and Vivek, our focus in digital efforts and innovation, how we can adapt to market shifts. Our panels also discussed about innovation and sustainability. And I totally love Janet's and Eileen's idea of creating that platform. And in Mandai, we are committed to provide the highest level of animal care and our commitment to key sustainable development goals. Looking at the future, Mandai Wildlife Reserve is being positioned to become a unique wildlife and nature destination, which continues to be rooted in our core missions to protect animal species and contribute to the thriving planet. Under this exciting rejuvenation plan, there are 5 zoological parks which will be integrated with a distinctive nature-based experiences, green public spaces, and an eco-friendly resort, providing access to a wide range of sustainable and wildlife experiences. A quick sneak peek to the new bird park will be a home to eight large walk-in aviaries, a Mandai Eco Resort to offer guests behind the scenes of animal experiences, and an entirely new rainforest park, which is in the works, described as a multi-generational living park inspired by tropical rainforests. Indeed, it's an unforgettable wildlife adventure at Mandai awaits. Under this plan, our business model, what we are trying to do is that when we are looking at all this rejuvenation plan, there are 3 key focuses we are rooted in our core DNA: caring for planet, building a people-focused culture, and to sustain our business performance. So under this plan, rejuvenation plan, the business models to adapt to new market shifts, for example, how COVID-19 have seeded adoption of digital technologies, rapid changes in customer behavior, and the rise of digital has been mounting pressures. And all this leads up to the need to speed up innovation. Innovation is critical to driving growth, but remains an opportunity for many companies. Today, we are talking about how companies can take place from startup playbooks to make them more competitive in the changing world. And why is that the urgency? Because faster innovation equals to faster mover advantages, ability to react more quickly to market shifts, lower development costs, which consists of streamlining processes, and a large market share in getting a product into the market as early as possible. For many years, many mature companies have faced the urgency to be more innovative and to keep up with the surrounding competition and the ability to react more quickly. So at Mandai, the Strategy and Innovation Department focuses on 2 key areas: knowledge and application to drive innovation in the organization. Under knowledge, we drive acquisition and tools that enables innovation, which are the 5 innovation behaviors. User-focused, data-driven, optimized, experimental, and agile, which Belina has shared previously under her segment. We even formed special interest group, starting with a Power Apps community, where a large percentage of colleagues who are non-tech background express interest in learning Power Apps, and they want to create a suite of employee productivity mobile apps to improve their work processes and, of course, to increase productivity. Under application, the team actually drives the application of innovation behaviors and tools. We try to bring in relevant partners like you to leverage your expertise and also to foster the sharing of ideas and perspective. We believe partnerships and community plays an important part of this transformation. Through partnerships, we are fostering new ways to experiment, to pioneer breakthrough technology and new business model that deliver impact at scale. And I am happy to see familiar faces here. And you might be wondering how you can be part of this ecosystem where we can together deliver new and meaningful ways to enrich people's life and be part of this transformation dedicated to caring for planet and protecting animals and nature, to inspire action together for a healthier world. And I am really excited to share with you Mandai Open Innovation Lab. At Mandai Innovation Lab, our focus are to create a fail-fast organization culture to harness new ideas by creating experiment spaces to enable entrepreneurship with experts like you and support for fast development and prototyping. Most importantly, co-innovating with customers and partners like you to solve industry-specific challenges and shape the next generations of the business tech. At core, we believe innovation through collaborations like partners like you, and our focus is to blend in-house and outside innovation to assess world-class talent and bridge the gap between external and internal. We also provide a clear governance and process for all this, and to develop innovation and innovative services and products with a well mixture of internal drivers and external innovation partners. That's why together with you, partners community like you is an important core driver in this transformation, where together we can provide a better experience for our guests, enrich their lives, and create a better world-class animal care. Under this Mandai Open Innovation Lab, we are looking at 3 areas. First, external innovators and enablers. Second, internal innovation. And third, innovation platforms. Through all this, it gives us the skill to tech scout, to have potential partners to accelerate our innovation journey, to build a strong startup support and engagement, and always constantly exploring new innovation platforms to accelerate our innovation processes. That said, I would like to take this opportunity to share our experience so far since June. We have started the journey of tapping onto IMDA Open Innovation Platform to accelerate our innovation, and of course to try to shorten this process from discovery to deployment in the shortest possible time. Since June, we have submitted 3 projects: aviary mesh monitoring system, smart environment real-time monitoring, and of course, animal behavior recognition system. In our next segment, Dr. Shangzhe will share more about this project. As we are sharing this, we have just launched our 4th challenge statement 2 days back. It's called the Environment Aware AI-enabled delivery system. So we seek a working prototype that can demonstrate its capability to navigate different wildlife terrains through route optimization to ensure all the packed meals are warm to eat. And more to come, so look up for it. Through Open Innovation Platform, we have reached out to over 90 tech innovators, 51 submissions so far, and it's really mind-blowing. We couldn't have done it without partners like you, and you play an important part in our whole ecosystem that represent a critical path to Mandai's ability to grow, to optimize our guest experience, and to ensure the highest level of guest satisfaction. At the same time, of course, to provide the highest level of care for our animals. We plan to connect with you, and we can't wait to start working with all of you and watch you do the best work of your lives. So at Mandai, we truly believe when we all work together, we can change the world for better. So write to us, and we are looking forward connecting with you. And this has been such a great day, and it's just only beginning of the huge day to come. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ryan. And that's fantastic, you know, a big call out there to anybody who'd be interested to be working with us. All the email addresses are out there, so please do reach out and we can start discussing opportunities out there. We're a little bit more than halfway through our inaugural Mandai Innovation Forum, And once again, we'd like to thank you so much for joining us. We're looking forward to more speakers coming up ahead from Singtel and Google AI. But before that, we've got Dr. Shanja, who, as Ryan has alluded to, will be sharing a little bit more about our innovation in the area of animal care. Dr. Shangsha has a vet degree and a master's in conservation medicine. One of the many interesting adventures he has been on includes working in various exotic pet practices around the world. Right now, he is acting Deputy Vice President of the Conservation Research and Vet Department at Mandai Wildlife Group, where he manages the vet department at Jurong Bird Park, as well as the research and animal care innovation projects at Mandai Wildlife Group. Now, Dr. Shangcha will be taking some questions, so please do feel free to use the Q&A button down below. Dr. Shangcha, over to you.
Thank you, Sherry. Good morning, everyone. So yeah, as Sherry mentioned, I was planning to take some questions live, but I see we're running quite behind on time. So some of these questions we might have to answer either by email, or we'll see how else we can do that. But yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the projects that Ryan mentioned earlier. But innovation has always been a part of our work because we work with animals. And we run 4 parks, and we're interested in conservation and biodiversity. And there's this saying that's going around, and it says never work with animals or children, but we have chosen to work with animals, and we want to use technology to help us in our work. The problem with technology and animals is that no one really designs these things for the species we need, because there's just no economy of scale. So we really have to take the products that are out there, the technologies that are out there, and try to fit our purpose most of the time. And one example is the story of Yari, the great pied hornbill. This story can be found on our website, but in summary, great pied hornbills get cancer in their casque, the top part of their beak. And we have since learned that the best way to treat this cancer is to remove the cancerous tissue. But to do that properly, you need to take quite a bit of the normal tissue out as well. So previous surgeries have failed simply because we just cannot take that much out without causing infection and other complications. What we did was we worked with NUS, and we got a 3D printed prosthesis that would fit perfectly over the defect caused by the surgery. And with that, we were very confident in removing the amounts of tissue that we needed. And that has resulted in a complete cure for Yari. So this has been more than 3 years now, and he's still cancer-free and living very happily in his aviary. And actually, this talk comes very timely because yesterday we did the same surgery on another hornbill, and with the experience we had from Yari, it was again very successful. And we hope that this patient will continue to do well as well. Another thing that we are starting to get involved in and has been in existence in other zoos around the world is DNA banks for endangered animals. So examples like the Frozen Zoo in San Diego and the IAZA Biobank, where they culture cells from endangered animals and then store these cells so that in the event that we lose these animals in future, we still have their cells stored somewhere. And if technology advances enough for us to use these cells in some way to help bring these animals back, they are available. But as you can see, a lot of these technological advances are used for very specific situations to benefit very specific animals and patients, or they are used as a fail-safe for other things. What we really need to focus on is to use this technology in our daily care of our animals so that we benefit more of them and we can do more to provide for them. I'm going to talk about 3 projects today that we have explored using technology in. First one's the elephant behavior monitoring project that we embarked on more than a year ago now. And the problem statement was very simple. It was how can we better monitor the animals, equipping zookeepers with real-time behavioral insights to provide the right care for the animals at the right time. And we picked elephants as the first species to work on. Firstly, because they're big, they're iconic, but because there are some problems that we know that can affect them that are currently not a huge problem for our elephants, but we do need to keep a close eye on. One example of this is the elephant endotheliotrophic herpes virus. This is a herpes virus that affects young Asian elephants. And once they are sick, they go downhill really quickly. So we need to pick up any changes in their health very early on to have any chance of treating them. So we need to monitor them very closely. And having a system where we can be alerted of very small changes in their behavior will allow us to pick up these changes in their health much earlier on. So we worked with a vendor, and this is a summary of the process that we went through. Basically, our system had cameras picking up the elephant's movements 24 hours, 7 days a week. And that feeds into a computer system that will extract, process the frames. They will try to label these behaviors and movements and classify them into different behaviors. And the more images that are fed into the system, the more training they get and the more accurate it becomes. And finally, they will combine all the data they've got to provide an output on the daily behavior of Neha, our youngest elephant in the troop. And next picture is an example of the locations of the cameras and the setup of the elephant yard that we had. And we developed a system that was able to summarize the sleep hours of Neha. It's a sleep pattern that I'm quite jealous of. Those numbers on the left are in minutes. So on average, Neha would sleep about 4 hours a day, give or take an hour or so. And the system is able to pick that up, and it will alert us if that goes above or below 2 standard deviations of the average. So you can see on the bottom, those are the times that the system notified us of changes to tell us to look more closely. And out of those alerts, only 2 of them were truly above or under 2 standard deviations. So there were quite a lot of false positives, which was a bit of a problem, because the more false alerts we get, then the more time is spent looking into the real behavior of the elephants when it might not have been needed. So future systems will hopefully improve on that. And the other problems that were identified with the initial system was that the cameras were located in areas where there can be blind spots. So if they move out of the camera's view into an area that's too dark, or the elephants huddle together, then the camera just fails to pick them up or identify them as individual elephants. And if they are standing or lying down and their height changes, then it will fail to recognize it as the same elephant as before. So there are these problems that we're looking to improve as the next step of this system. And we have, as Ryan mentioned, put out an open innovation platform challenge. And we have had quite a few interesting and innovative proposals that we're currently looking at, and hopefully we can share progress in this project next year. Right, the next project I'll talk about is one that will develop a system for monitoring our aviary mesh. As you may have heard, we are building a new bird paradise in Mandai, and hopefully we will soon be moving our birds from Jurong over to Mandai. And without giving too much away, the new bird paradise will be focused very much on large aviaries. And if you remember your recent visit to Jurong Bird Park, the waterfall aviary is our most iconic aviary at the moment. And we want to have a lot more of these aviaries in the bird paradise. So with more large aviaries, we have a problem statement of how can we investigate aviary mesh integrity and conduct automated inspections for detection of possible breaches. And large aviaries are a much better experience for both the birds and the visitors, because there's a lot of space for the birds to display their natural behaviors, and we can mix different bird species that would normally coexist in the same environment in the wild, and that's a much better experience for our visitors as well. Currently at Jurong Bird Park, we have quite a few slopes at the back, so some parts of our aviaries can be easily and manually inspected for any defects. But there are also other parts that are very high and are very difficult to inspect on a regular basis. And in the new bird paradise, there will be a lot more of these high areas because we have less of these hilly slopes that you can climb onto. And we put out a challenge earlier this year, and we had quite a few proposals as well. On the top left photo, you can see that's the type of mesh that will be in the new bird paradise. And the top right photo was one proposal where the defect is picked up when there's a hole in the mesh. If you visit one of our aviaries right now, you would notice that you lose your 4G signal very quickly once you enter the aviary. And that's from an effect known as the Faraday effect. I cannot explain any more than that to you because I probably wasn't paying enough attention during my physics lessons. But if there's a big hole in the aviary, you will get more of your waves coming through. So you can try to pick up these waves and pinpoint where they're coming in and try to find that defect. So that's one of the proposals we considered. The one on the bottom left is a bit more proactive. That involves putting sensors, vibration sensors all around the aviary. And in that way, the computer will be able to see the aviary mesh in a different pattern as our eye. And they can pick up a lot more changes than we can with our eye with these patterns and sensors. And they, in theory, can pick up even weaknesses in the aviary mesh before a big hole develops. So to us, that was a lot more proactive and allows us to intervene a lot earlier. And the last proposal that we considered on the bottom right was one where you would put a sensor right on the top of the aviary, and that sends out waves and signals that are reflected back, are read and picked up. And that gives us a good overview of movements of birds within the aviary. So when you see them congregate on one area, it could be a sign of a hole developing and then trying to find a way out. But again, that's a little bit less proactive, and the problem might be too big by then to pick up. So this is again in development, and we are quite hopeful we will have a good prototype soon. And the last project that we are working on is one where we want to automate environmental loggers. The environment of animal in our collection is one of the most important aspects of its care. There are 5 domains of animal welfare: nutrition, environment, health, behavior, and mental. And the environment is of varying importance, but they are probably the most important for species like fish, because you're surrounded by water, and you're doing the opposite of what mammals and other animals try to do, because we try to get water into our system to stay alive, and fish have to keep water out of their system to stay alive. and whatever is in the water can get into their body very easily. And their environment basically is what's in the water. So for such species, we need to have very tight monitoring and control of the environment. And that is where an automated system will be very useful in picking up early changes. We want to measure quite a lot of parameters, including humidity, temperature, airflow, UV light, sound, and vibration. These are particularly important for land animals. And then things like water pH, water oxygen levels, chlorine levels, carbon dioxide, nitrate levels are very important for species that live in water. The challenges of this particular project is a little bit different because the technology basically exists currently, and the main innovation is putting them together in a way that works in our aviaries, different exhibits, and water tanks. The main problem statement is how can we measure environmental parameters, access the data on a single server, and receive alerts through an automated system. And if that is successfully done, the next step is actually to see how they can automatically adjust some of these parameters and bring it back down to the normal levels. So you can see some examples of the range of exhibits we need to have these systems work in. The top left corner is one of our water tanks aquarium in River Wonders. And that's where we need the loggers to be waterproof, and the frequency of reading of the parameters are a little bit more frequent than some of the other exhibits. The one on the top right corner is an indoor reptile exhibit. So reptiles rely a lot on the environment to maintain their body temperature. So the temperature is one of the more important things to monitor in here, and humidity really affects them as well. And those might be things that are easily controlled and auto-regulated if we have a system that can pick up the changes. On the bottom are two outdoor aviaries, one at Night Safari and one at the current bird park. And for these ones, the main challenge in having these loggers is to animal-proof them, because if you have something that's big and it looks different in the aviary or exhibit, the animals are going to explore them and maybe even destroy them. So as I mentioned, all these loggers are already in the market. It's a matter of putting them all together, consolidating their output, and having them alert us as we want. And again, we're hopeful we'll have a good prototype very soon, and that we can implement those in our current exhibits. So that's all I have today. If you have any questions, you can type it in the Q&A box, but if not, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shankar. And we really hope for good results with these prototypes as well. And for now, we are honored to have speakers from the industry to share insights on innovation in the space of sustainability, biodiversity, technology, and startups. Mr. Lim Seng Kong is Managing Director of Singtel Enterprise Business, where he is responsible for managing the enterprise business, covering all aspects of sales, marketing, product, and delivery. Mr. Lim, please.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure, and I'm most honored to be here today. Managed to catch a glimpse of Dr. Shankar as well as Ryan's presentation. I must congratulate you guys, for the wonderful work that's being done and the contributions, to our environment as well as mankind. So today, I'm going to share, something very simple in technology. Okay, I'm not going to talk a lot about, metaverse, the latest and the greatest, but more importantly, how this technology, okay, which I would argue is a key cornerstone of innovation, can be brought to your fingertips. Okay, and why is that important? Because, when it is near you, when you can be a lot more agile, and when you can respond a lot quicker, the room for innovation, the data points, the inputs, and the ability to analyze better, will all facilitate far better innovation and far faster innovation. So let me start by just sharing, what are the 4 foundation blocks in my mind, in technologies that is going to promote innovation. Now, the first is IoT. All right, Internet of Things. Okay, in fact, arguably, there's now a term called IoE, not IoT. Okay, which is Internet, not just of things, of everything. Okay, arguably, that is the basics because it is the foundation for data collection. Okay, like what Jeff Bezos says, right? I mean, the Americans, in God we trust, the rest of you bring data. Arguably, the richer your data, okay, like what was mentioned earlier, the fidelity of the image of the elephants, for example, I mean, sometimes can be difficult, to detect because it's under certain very difficult condition, but the better the fidelity of the data, the easier it is for us, to digest and to analyze. Okay, so this is a very key foundation or very key cornerstone. The second is actually in the area of augmented or virtual reality. Okay, so this is basically your imaging, right? So your smart image analysis, your ability to combine images in the real world, what we see in the physical world, and images in the cyber world. Okay, it's very much in this area. Okay, now and arguably, for you guys who have been following metaverse, what Microsoft is talking about, what Facebook is talking about, okay, is actually a very good application of AR and VR, okay, where instead of you guys staring at a screen, looking at the speakers speaking, it basically gives you that complete sensory of us being in the same location together, although we are, physically actually separated. Now, the third foundation or cornerstone, which I think has been mentioned many times in previous presentations, okay, is artificial intelligence. I don't think I need to explain a lot of that, okay, and last but not least, is robotics, all right, and again, I think robotics is something that is well understood. Now, arguably, we may say that, all right, so these are the 4 building blocks, so what is the big deal? Okay, I would like to introduce something that is emerging and maturing very fast, okay, and which is the concept of edge computing. Now, what exactly is edge computing and why is it so exciting? Sorry, maybe I can just have the next click to show edge computing. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and why is it so exciting? I think the best way to explain edge computing is this, right? Prior to edge computing, broadly speaking, there are 2 ways you can have access to compute power. The first is when this compute power is in a data center. Obviously, the benefits of this is, it's powerful. You get together, a lot of powerful, processing power, the scale is there and so on and so forth. But the downside of that is accessibility is limited. Depending on what you are doing, what you're trying to observe and all that, you may need to be very near, one way or another, whether it's well connected or literally physically near the data center where the compute power is, okay? Otherwise, it would not be delivered to you on time. Now, the other way, okay, before edge computing, where you can access, compute power and all that is obviously, something we all know too well, which is, in our handheld devices, in our mobile devices, whether it's your laptop or the servers that is, in your office, at your homes and all that, all right? So the advantage of this is, of course, the processing is done within the device itself, is localized. So obviously, there's no problem about speed and turnaround. But the limitation of that is actually scale, all right? I mean, how fast can you process things? What is the compute power available? I mean, although microchips, computer chips have come a long way in their compute power, growth, okay, it is still very limited. How much can you start, in a small little handphone or even, in the notebook, that you carry around with you. So each has its, each way of accessing compute power has its advantages as well as disadvantages. Now, each computing, in essence, basically brings, the power of, the processing that you find in a data center onto literally your fingertips, onto your mobile devices, okay? And this is done, none other than through very high-speed connectivity. I mean, the example I use here is 5G, Obviously, there are other, the high-speed connectivity that is going to enable this. Now, so what exactly is so fantastic about this? Other than having the power at your fingertips, how does this actually work? Okay, in very simple terms. First of all, let's look at if I can have the next slide, please. First of all, let's look at the nature of the connectivity itself. Okay, which is not difficult to understand. All right. If you look at the speed, to share with you, some specific, the speed as well as the latency. Okay, you are talking about anything between 10 to 100 times, that kind of thing. And in some instances, you look at a 5 times, improvement in latency. In some instances, between the time where you observe and the time you act, all right, like what a human would do, sometimes this latency is even faster than what the human body can do. Okay, from the time of observing a phenomenon to the time of reacting to it. Okay, so we are talking about that kind of latency. Now, but besides speed, it's important for me to point out that predictability is another big factor that is very important and is another big breakthrough, that is embedded in high-speed connection technology. Now, you need predictability, certainly. I think it's easy to bring up this example in autonomous driving, for example. I mean, can you imagine, okay, when you have a blip in your connectivity? Autonomous driving is a lot about transmitting data up, get it processed, come back down, telling the car how do you react, right? So can you imagine if you even have 1 second of blackout, okay, data got transmitted up, got lost or not processed fast enough, come back, you and I know what happened, okay? So, which is why, predictability is very important. And in 5G, there is something called network slicing, okay, which in very simple terms, they can preserve a channel dedicated just for this purpose. All right, a channel within a single link, within a single circuit. So you can have tons of these channels, okay, dedicated to specific purpose, and that would actually help a lot with performance and preventing interruption. Now, the other aspect of edge computing, okay, is actually the platform to enable it. So it is not just the connectivity. If I can have the next click, please. A platform that not just supports the low latency, but gives you easy programming. And very importantly, back to the earlier technology blocks that I talked about, whether it's IoT, whether it's AI and all that, they all sit on this platform and allow you to use them in different combinations and permutations very easily. Okay, now imagine, all right, that basically do away with a lot of the complicated programming, that basically do away with a lot of the long lead time, that you need before you can respond to anything, okay? That would be another factor that, kind of liberate this technology and bring it to your fingertips. Now, it's worthwhile for me to mention that, a third factor, a less visible factor, which we are all very happy about, is essentially the economics of using edge computing will change. Okay, I'm very confident about that. And the reason is very simple. Think about it. Today, we are very limited or constrained, by a lot of our devices, our handheld devices. For example, we now need to, before edge computing, we need to have different kinds of drones, okay, for different purpose. Okay, for example, if you need something that is, high, pictures that are with high clarity and all that, you need a certain kind of camera. For example, if you're using drones to inspect defects on a building, for example, you will then need, cameras of a, certain specification, definition, and all that to bring across that kind of high clarity. On the other hand, if you need a drone to just, detect motion and to be able to trace, for example, doing your usual surveillance and all that, you probably need a different kind of resolution. And if this is done only at the hardware level, it's going to be really difficult. Okay, then you end up with a plethora of different drones for different purpose. But imagine with edge computing, you can actually load in different software, different firmware on the fly, okay, to your end devices, which means that today your end device is none other than a lightweight physical device, okay, and can be deployed for multiple purposes. So the sheer change of that economics is going to make adoption of such technologies a lot more affordable. So coming back to today's topic, the next slide on sustainability. What exactly is sustainability? As we know it, obviously it is all about, extending the use of life. Maybe I can have the next click, please. Yeah. Extending, the useful life, eliminating or reducing waste, such that things can be recycled, having zero waste and reuse again. Now, if I look at what Mandai is doing, okay, you obviously have your own goals in sustainability as well. And I got to share and make a confession. When I was preparing for this presentation, I'm so used, to talking to organizations, commercial organizations. I'm so used to talking about technologies, innovation, in a commercial world, in an industry environment, smart city, smart car, smart factory, so on and so forth. When I look at what Mandai is doing, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate all the staff, the Mandai team, because what you are doing, okay, is really, really important, very meaningful and very fulfilling, okay? And you are dealing with nature, and I would basically say that mankind will cease to exist when nature ceases to exist. And in dealing with this, you are posing a very different kind, we are confronted with a very different kind of challenges as opposed to, an industry environment. It is a lot more delicate. You are talking a lot more about balance, okay, not just efficiency. You are talking a lot more of, there are a lot more interdependencies, in the environment that you are dealing with. So it is really, really challenging. So I think in that light, having talked about technologies and all that, what are some of the innovation enablers, that I can suggest that, we can all look at right now with this power, or with this compute power at our fingertips? All too often we hear about rich data. I like to advocate even richer data. Okay, just now we talked about the importance, of data as the foundation for all, innovation and application. Think about it this way. I mean, we are very, well versed with what I call computer counts or, all kinds of measurements, I mean, be it, speed or be it, sensors on water levels, so on and so forth. But what about incorporating smell, as one of the dimensions, in this richer data? Now, by that, don't let me oversell and don't get too excited. I'm not saying that, high-speed connectivity, edge compute, can actually transmit smell to the user, okay? Maybe someday it will, but not as yet, okay? But what is interesting is you can now have sensors, with certain kind of smell profile, okay, where you can detect the threshold, where you can send out alerts, when it goes beyond a certain threshold and all that. Okay, a very good example, a very good applications that I've seen. I don't know how many of you have come across in Singapore, where you have smart toilets. Okay, guess what? It's very simple. When the ammonia level, when the ammonia smell goes beyond a certain level, a cleaner is activated. Smart, right? I mean, isn't that amazing? And the other one, okay, which you're doing already to some extent, is actually, incorporating sound. Okay, so I mean, what is a normal sound profile? Obviously, when you look at nature, it's even more complicated because you obviously don't expect only one kind of sound, right? You expect a combination and all that. But I'm sure going forward, with this kind of high fidelity sensors and high speed network, okay, we can easily get to a point where we can define what are the normal sounds and what are the abnormalities, that will be detected and presented, when it go beyond this normal threshold. Now, the next area, okay, and very specific to what you are dealing with, okay, is you are dealing with the environment. Okay, you are not just dealing with, a production engine, a specific machinery and all that. You are dealing with the environment, okay, which is really, really complicated. There's 1,001 dimension, almost limitless, right? In terms of, what you need to know about the environment. Now, so again, with the richer data, okay, I would, and also more importantly, with this compute power at your fingertips, it actually allows you to increase, your level of interaction, your frequency of interaction with the environment. And with that, it helps you to deepen your understanding of the environment, and through that, enhancing relationship, right? Just now, there was one slide talk about dealing with animals and children, or not dealing with animals and children. Okay, this is no different from bringing up children, right? You don't just communicate once a week and expect, both of you to build a relationship and understand each other. You have to interact frequently. And with this power at your fingertips, arguably, you will now be able to interact a lot more frequently than before. And that, in turn, would enable or open up a whole new world of deepened understanding, and from there, innovations. Now, finally, the last area, okay, would actually be in the area of modeling and simulation. Again, this is not new, right? I mean, we talk about digital twins. For example, you would have heard, in the local context, that Singapore is going to build a digital twin for their power grid, which is really, really good, because all of us know how sensitive power transmission is, and all of us know, what is the impact, or how big is the impact, if we lose transmission or if we have an unexpected failure. All right. So with a digital twin, that is where you can actually have a virtual model of the grid, and that, more importantly, you can start doing simulation. All right. And arguably, especially with the environment, that you are dealing with, biodiversity and all that, you will not want to have interventions, okay, that you apply that creates permanent damage that is irreversible. Right, so the ability to model and simulate actually help you avoid that pitfall, and help you, to actually, create interventions proactively when a certain scenario happens. For example, when rainfall is low, when sunshine is, particularly long or hot, what do you need to do? You can do that simulation and then basically have that reaction in your playbook. Now, I must say, one of the most interesting and mind-boggling application of this that I've seen is, for those of you who know cars, Porsches. All of us know too well that, you service your car once in 12 months, you service your car once every 25,000 kilometers, and that's basically it. Now imagine, all right, what Porsche has done. They basically create a digital twin of every single car that they sell. And within the car, there are sensors to monitor how you use the car. All right. So all of a sudden, the dimensions, for modeling and simulation goes far beyond usage. All right. Before that, the smartest you can get is, instead of time bound, is usage bound. 25,000 kilometers, anything less than that, don't worry about servicing. But now, with that kind of digital twin and modeling and simulation, they can tell, well, this driver doesn't apply a lot of his brakes. Okay, he's still alive. Okay, so don't worry about servicing your brake too often. Well, this driver, he's driving habit. It's this and that, and let's worry a lot more about his suspension. And guess what? I'm going to call him in to service his car, even way before that 12 months, and so on and so forth. Right? So that is really, if you ask me, mind-boggling. So with that, I think, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're as excited as I am, about what technology, what digital, can pose to us, okay, can help with us, and especially in your daily work as well. I would advocate, okay, if I may have the next slide, that we have barely started, okay, but maybe there will In fact, definitely the enhancement of individual building blocks that I've shared earlier in the area of IoT, in the area of AR, VR, so on and so forth. But I would argue that the real value is how you combine and mix and match each of these building blocks, different technologies to create new possibilities, right? My own belief, we have barely started, the possibilities are endless. With that, thank you very much, and I wish you a nice event ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lim. We're looking forward to those endless possibilities as well. And we certainly do hope that Mandai will be the place where we can try a lot of these things out. Thank you very much. Last but certainly not least, our final speaker for the Mandai Innovation Forum dials in from the US to join us this evening for him today. Dr. Roy Awamada is the Executive Director of Wildlife Insights, Google AI, which is a new cloud-based platform that leverages artificial intelligence and big data to protect wildlife around the world. Mr. Awamada is also a senior wildlife scientist at Conservation International, where he has spent the past decade championing the use of technology and remote sensors to protect ecosystems and the communities and species that rely on them. Dr. Awamada, please.
Thank you very much, Sherry, and thank you everybody for staying. Well, I'm probably the only one who's staying up late, but you all been staying listening for a few hours, so thank you for staying over. And I'm going to talk about. Let me start my screen sharing. All right. Can everybody confirm that, or somebody confirm they can see my screen?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to be talking about a project that that uses technology to solve a very, very specific conservation problem, and it's called Wildlife Insights, and it stemmed from a problem that many people are having in terms of figuring out how to process large amounts of data coming from the natural world, specifically from these devices called camera traps. And many of you are familiar with camera traps. But first of all, I just want to point out that this platform was built by Conservation International, the NGO where I work, with a lot of support from Google and a lot of support from other partners that contributed data and ideas to this platform. So it is a multi-partnership platform, and we're very happy to share some of the. I'm very happy to share some of the thoughts behind it and how it is help us understand better AI and better understand how we can get data in front of people quickly. So, I mean, we're all depressed about where the world is going, where climate change and deforestation and a lot of changes everywhere. But we have now, or can be finally entering into an era where green finance is finally here. So there are activities that we can do to reduce the risk of climate change, deforestation, and other things, including restoration, carbon offsets, regenerative ag, and these things are big. I mean, the number of the size of investments that are around is on the order of billions of dollars for each of these activities. So it is a sign of hope that we're going to get there. There's enough money to get us there. But what about biodiversity? We don't have a fund that big in protecting biodiversity and wildlife. And wildlife is important because it ensures that ecosystem services are provided. So it also ensures the long sustainability for many of these investments in restoration or regenerative ag. But given the importance of wildlife in being kind of the complement of all these things, we have very few technology solutions to evaluate the status of wildlife, which means like with carbon, we can take remote sensing measures and figure out, okay, how much carbon is there. With forest regeneration, we can figure out how much forest cover is there from sensors. But for wildlife, we have very, very primitive ways of going around this. And since relatively recently, we're now starting to introduce new technologies to do that. One of those technologies is camera trapping. And I bring this picture up because this is a bush dog. It's a very, very rare species of dog that lives in Central and South America. And when I was a student working in Colombia, studying monkeys, I ran into these dogs and I reported back to the people in my camp and told them I saw these dogs and I described them exactly as they were, and nobody believed me. And nobody believed me because they're very rare, they're very rarely seen, and there was no evidence. But now camera traps give us the evidence. So camera traps are these devices that you put out in the forest or you put out in different places, and they take pictures of animals as they live their lives and capture them in their, in their normal lives. So there are also observations, and they are time-stamped and provide data. We found out that camera traps are everywhere. This is a study we did a few years ago where we kind of did an initial survey of where are camera traps, and we find there's thousands of people collecting this data all over the world, hundreds of thousands of devices, millions of images. We estimate that about $100 million are spent in camera traps annually by people. But where does all this data go? And it didn't go anywhere. And the problem was that there's a few barriers in analyzing camera trap data. One of them is it takes a long time to go over images and look at them. The other one is that we have data that is siloed and raw. I mean, like, even if you can process this data, it will be sitting in your hard drive for a long time and you can't share it with anybody. And then in order to analyze the data and to do the kind of the most basic things, you need to have a specialized statistical knowledge, because camera trap data are messy. They're spatially autocorrelated and temporally autocorrelated. They're pseudo-replicated. So you have to apply all these corrections to the data, and very few people have the training to do that. So that's why we created Wildlife Insights. Our goal was to provide wildlife professionals with a platform that will eliminate these barriers. That is, identify, manage, and analyze camera trap data so that people can evaluate biodiversity outcomes. And we can be talking about a conservation NGO, we can be talking about a company, we could be talking about a forestry outfit that wants to understand what wildlife is doing in its forest plantation, or we can be talking about a government. So, we don't put camera traps out there. People put camera traps out there, organizations and individuals. We don't make decisions about what happens with wildlife. We are right in the middle. So we just provide a bridge, or what our goal is to provide that bridge of, you put sensors, you can put them all in Wildlife Insights. We upload, we identify the data and analyze it, and then you can take those decisions and act. So currently, we just launched Wildlife Insights a few months ago publicly, and we're already up to 22 million images or camera trap records all over the world. I mean, there's a lot of data out there, and more people are using it every day. And I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about all the features. I want to focus on the artificial intelligence, because I think it's the most interesting part. It's the part we've been working with Google the most. So I'll spend some time talking about artificial intelligence, and then I'll talk about a few other things. So, can AI help identify animals in the wild? Of course, this is one of the most important. Many of the speakers in this forum have already talked about AI and how can AI help us identify animals. Now, it can, but it requires data. We require training data sets where we have lots of camera trap images and lots of data where people have already gone through these manually, so we can train a model. And so this is why we partnered in the beginning, because we knew that we couldn't figure this out without all these partners that had already been working with camera trap data the old way, going through all these images. So the first part in building a good AI model is getting a lot of data. Now, once you have data, then you can train, AI algorithms like this convolutional neural network and tell the algorithm, this image is from this animal, this image is from that animal. And then you can kind of test your model by presenting it with a species, like this one, and tell them, what do you think this is? But it's not as easy. So first of all, camera trap data are characterized by a lot of blank data. There's many times where there's nothing in the camera trap. Why? Because the camera trap triggers by mistake. There's a lot of problems in sometimes in the way camera traps are set up. So when there's sun shining on them, they misfire. Anyway, so there's a lot of blank images. So we had to work with Google to train a model that would first identify and filter all these blank images, get them out of the way, and then predict species in each of the images. And also, like you notice this bounding box in this jaguar, it's because the AI has to find the animal in the image so that it knows it's not a blank. So currently, we've been working for a while with Google on this, and our model has been trained in 886 wildlife species across 12 million images. It's one of the biggest AI models for camera trap data ever built. Now, camera trap data is not like normal data that you take, normal animal picture data that you take with your phone or with a professional camera. Camera trap data are messy, and they're messy because nobody's taking the picture. It's the camera that is, and sometimes it's overexposed. Sometimes it's difficult to see the animal in the image, like in the middle there with the snowshoe hare. Sometimes it's blurry, like that fox in my backyard. Sometimes you just see an ear or partial part of the animal. Sometimes you don't see anything, but there's something there, like in the lower left there's an animal in the lower left corner there. So all these things just require enormous amounts of data so that an algorithm can say, well, I'm not presented with a perfect picture, but I can, because I've seen this before, I can try to identify it. So this is kind of some of the things that we use to build our model, like some of the user stories. A typical technician or biologist or person working with this data would say, I waste so much time looking at blank images. Well, now our AI models catch 79% of blank images with an error rate of less than 2%. We're very happy about that. Here's another one. I don't want to spend time looking at yet another squirrel image. Now you can replace squirrel for any of the common species that you have in forests, like many rodents or deer or things that are relatively common. Now for 100 of those species, 150 or so of those common species, our models are able to identify between 80% and 90% of them correctly. And why? Because there's a lot of data about them. So we're very happy about that. Now, in terms of speed, I mean, again, if you're a very experienced labeler of images, you can do maybe top 1,000 images per hour. But a single machine can identify 18,000 images per hour. It's like 20 times more. And when you parallelize that across hundreds of thousands of GPUs, AI can save us a lot of time. So, how is the model doing for your species of interest? We have a table in our website that you can search for any species, and it will give you the number of images that it's been trained on. It will give you the number of the precision, which is like the number of times the image was right in a test run, and then the recall, like how many times that will happen again. And you can see that our model does pretty well with blanks. It does pretty well with people. It does pretty well with mule deer and other species that are very, very common. But it doesn't do very well with rare species. So how will the model improve? Well, we help build the accuracy by asking people to submit images, to put their images in Wildlife Insights, because if in the beginning the model cannot identify them, people will, and then we can keep training the model. So that's kind of a way to keep this model evolving and becoming better and better and better. So here's, and I don't want to read those, but the artificial intelligence, I just gave you kind of the big numbers on it. But here's other things that we do. Is not just our AI that runs wildlife things. Like there's a lot of other tools, including data input and management tools, collaboration and sharing, analytics and insights. You can go to the website, navigate some of our features and tutorials, and learn more about how to use it. Now, it's also about data-driven wildlife management. It's about taking the analysis and the science out of the hands of specialists and making it available to everybody. So, we built dashboards like this in Philippines, where we started from scratch with a camera trapping project. And in a matter of weeks, they were like, after they collected all the data, they were looking at this data, how many images were collected, how many species, what were the abundance of these species, how are the species distributed in space. So all those things we will be able to do. So I want to emphasize that it's an end-to-end solution, and I want to make sure that people understand that it's not just the AI, it's not just collecting the data, it's making sure it gets analyzed and can be used for wildlife management. So just kind of to end here, it's about time saved, time that you could be doing conservation, or you can be reporting back to your funders, or you could be doing some intervention to be able to understand what's happening there. It's also about analytics and the verification of biodiversity co-benefits. I mean, we're investing millions of dollars in restoration projects. How do we know they're successful? I mean, in terms of carbon, they might be, but what about biodiversity? So this is a way to do that very quickly. And we want to also provide metrics on wildlife population status at a global level. That's something that we're trying. And we want to create a community of people, because people can see each other projects now in the world and can start collaborating and building things together and joining forces. Before, nobody knew who was working where. Now with Wildlife Insights, you can see that in a map. So finally, I want to thank our supporters, mostly the Moore Foundation, Google, and the Lyda Hill Foundation. But I want to say, we're looking for investors. I would love to talk to Li Mei Ling from 500 Global. I saw her before. So we're looking for investors because we think Wildlife Insights can be a sustainable, for-profit, mission-driven organization, and we want to make sure that we can do that and offer services and products for companies, for governments, and for others, while keeping it available and free for conservation organizations and people that have less capacity to pay. So if any of you are interested, or are a donor, or work for a company that is financing social impact investments, we'd be happy to hear. I'll be happy to hear from you. So thank you so much. For more information, here's some information. You can visit us at wildlifeinsights.org. If you have any questions, you can email us at info@wildlifeinsights.org. And there's our Twitter and Facebook handles as well. So thank you so much, and apologies, it's a little late for me, so I might have stumbled a little bit when I was speaking, but I'm happy to take any questions or anything else.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahumada. That was really interesting. A couple of us were geeking out in the background, just learning about what you have been doing, and really look forward to opportunities to partner with you as well. I think that will be fantastic. So that's what we're closing off with, something really interesting and something quite forward-looking in the industry. And that brings us to the end of the Mandai Innovation Forum. Thank you all for joining us today. We're just closing off in time for lunch. But just before we do that, we would really appreciate if you could help with a survey, telling us a little bit about your experience today and how you felt about the webinar. So at the end of the webinar, you will see a message. Please click continue to participate. Thank you all once again very much. We hope to see you in our parks really soon, and for Dr. Ahumada, hopefully in a partnership of some sort. Thank you very much, and goodbye.